The girl by the alley was just after sunset in downtown Los Angeles. The sky had turned the color of bruised lavender, and the hum of traffic mixed with the soft rustle of palm trees. Along the sidewalks, lights flickered on one by one, and people hurried past each other, faces buried in phones, minds full of deadlines and dinner plans. Nobody noticed the man stumbling near the corner of Franklin and Hill Street. Nobody, except for her Sana. She had just finished her shift at the bakery on Westwood and was taking the back route home. To save the bus fare, 21 years old, a third-year medical student who couldn't afford her textbooks and studied off of donated printouts. Her shoes were worn, her hoodie oversized, and her backpack carried not only her notes, but 3 bagels she had been allowed to take home. She turned into the alley shortcut near the parking garage when she heard it. A cough, then another, a low, strained sound, like someone trying to breathe through broken glass. At first, she hesitated. This part of the alley was usually filled with shadows and whispers. Not the kind of place where you linger, but something about the sound didn't feel dangerous. It felt desperate. She stepped forward slowly, eyes scanning the alley. Then she saw him. A man, tall, wearing a dark blazer, was hunched over, leaning against the wall with one hand gripping his chest. His other hand was clutching a small paper bag. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temples. He looked up just for a second, and she froze. She recognized him. KeanuReeves. Her heart skipped, but there was no time for that, because in that moment, his knees gave out. He collapsed to the ground. Sana dropped her bag and ran forward. "Sir," she shouted. "Sir, can you hear me?" He tried to speak, but his lips only parted slightly, and his hand trembled at his chest. She knelt beside him, checking his pulse. It was rapid, irregular, too fast to be stable. "You're having a heart attack," she said, voice calm but firm. "Don't try to talk." She opened her backpack, pulled out a small emergency first aid pouch. Not much, just basic items. But her hands moved fast, her brain already calculating. "Do you have nitroglycerin?" she asked. He nodded weakly, barely able to reach into his coat pocket. She found the small bottle and placed one tablet under his tongue. Then she unzipped her hoodie and rolled it into a cushion under his head. Someone else might have screamed for help, panicked, fumbled. But Sana was trained. Even if the hospital refused to let her volunteer last semester because of unpaid fees, even if her own classmates thought she was too broke to keep up. None of that mattered now. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. Sirens still hadn't come. She pulled out her phone and called 911. "I'm with an adult male," she said clearly. "Signs of myocardial infarction. I administered nitroglycerin. Pulse is irregular. Send an ambulance to the corner of Franklin and Hill, alley behind the parking garage." "Name of the patient?" the dispatcher asked. She hesitated. Then glanced at him again. "KeanuReeves," she said quietly. The dispatcher froze for a beat. "Say again?" "KeanuReeves," she repeated. "But hurry, please." She hung up. In the quiet moment that followed, he looked at her, eyes glassy, voice barely a whisper. You knew." She nodded. "Yeah, but that doesn't matter right now." He smiled faintly. "You're not a nurse, I'm a med student. Still counts." Then he passed out. The ambulance came 5 minutes later. The paramedics rushed in, recognizing him instantly. Cameras began to gather as whispers turned into crowd murmurs. Paparazzi, pedestrians, phones flashing. But by the time they loaded him into the ambulance, Sana was gone. She had slipped away into the shadows before anyone could ask her name. Just a girl in a hoodie with a backpack and worn shoes. No one saw her return to the tiny one-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother and little brother. No one saw her sit at the kitchen table with shaking hands. No one knew what she had just done. But she did. And so did he. Because the next morning, Keanu woke up in the hospital. Alive. Stable. And asking one question over and over again. Where's the girl? He didn't remember her name, but he remembered her eyes. Her voice. Her calm. And what started as a question would soon become a mission. Because finding her wouldn't just change her life, it would change his. In ways no one saw coming. *. The Girl, no one could find. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft hum of the monitors and the slow beep of Keanu's heart rate. Clean white sheets, fresh flowers in the corner, security posted outside. Doctors came and went, whispering in careful tones. Nurses smiled politely. Fans waited outside the building holding posters and cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of the actor who had somehow survived what should have been fatal. But inside, Keanu Reeves had only one thing on his mind. The girl. He said again, "Has anyone found her?" The nurse glanced up from the clipboard. "The one who helped you." He nodded. Young, small frame, dark hoodie, calm voice. "She said she was a med student. Her name, I never asked." The nurse shook her head. "We asked around. No one stayed at the scene long enough to give a name. Police said she disappeared before paramedics got there." Keanu leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. "She saved my life," he whispered. He knew what he felt in that alley, the pain, the collapse, the fear, and then her voice, steady, clear, focused, not the voice of a stranger running away, but the voice of someone who had trained for moments like that, someone who didn't flinch. He had been slipping under, and she pulled him back, and now she was gone. By afternoon, Keanu's manager issued a quiet statement to the press confirming his condition and thanking the unidentified young woman who had administered emergency care. But the media spun it fast. Mystery girl saves Keanu's life and vanishes. Who is she? Hero in a hoodie. Fans searched for unknown medical angel. News channels ran footage from nearby street cams. Grainy images showed a small figure kneeling beside Keanu in the alley, hands steady, movements efficient. The face was never fully visible. The footage ended just before the ambulance arrived. Someone online enhanced the image and posted it everywhere. "Find her. She's a hero. She deserves the world." But Sana didn't know any of that. She didn't have time to watch the news. After walking home that night, she helped her mother prepare dinner. Her mother's back pain had worsened. Sana offered to massage it while her younger brother, Omar, worked through his math homework at the kitchen table. Their apartment was old, the walls thin, the heater broken again. They didn't talk about what Sana had done. She hadn't told them. It wasn't because she was hiding. She just didn't think it mattered. He was safe now. That was enough. But the next morning at the bakery, something strange happened. A woman came in with a newspaper in her hand. She was in her 30s, wore designer shoes, and clearly wasn't from the neighborhood. She pointed at the image in the paper, the girl in the hoodie kneeling beside Keanu. "Does she work here?" the woman asked. The manager, Mr. Khalid, looked up from the register. "Why are you asking?" "She saved someone famous," the woman said. "There's a reward, a huge one." Sana, who was behind the counter preparing dough, heard it all but stayed quiet. She kept her head down and pressed the air out of the bread carefully, pretending not to listen. "Haven't seen her," Khalid lied smoothly. "Sorry." The woman left, frustrated. Khalid turned to Sana a few minutes later and said nothing. He just raised his eyebrows slightly. She gave him a small nod, and he smiled. Outside, the media continued their search. Online communities compared shadows and hoodie patterns. Fans speculated wildly. Celebrities joined in. "Whoever she is," one actor tweeted, "she deserves to go to medical school for free." Keanu finally left the hospital on the third day. Reporters mobbed the exit. He gave one brief statement before stepping into a black car. "I'm alive today because of a stranger," he said, "and I will find her." Back in her neighborhood, Sana walked Omar to school every morning. He was 10 and struggled with asthma, which meant Sana always kept an eye on him. She walked him past the small market, past the cracked sidewalk, past the kids who teased him for carrying an inhaler. "You gonna be a doctor too?" one boy asked. Mockingly. Omar didn't reply. Sana did. "He can be anything." Omar smiled. She didn't know that, just a few miles away, Keanu had already hired a private investigator. Not the kind who chased celebrities, but someone quiet, someone who knew how to find good people hiding in plain sight. He gave him one instruction: don't scare her. Don't make it big. Just find her name. I want to help her, the way she helped me. Sana's routine didn't change. She studied at night, worked in the day, walked to class when she could afford it, sometimes skipped meals so her brother could eat more. No one suspected she was the girl everyone in the city, and now the world, was looking for. Until she made a small mistake. She stayed late at the university library, using a student computer to research cardiac first response procedures. Just a refresher. She clicked on an article titled, "Doctor Reacts to Mystery Girl Saving Keanu Reeves." The librarian noticed. So did the security camera. The next morning, the private investigator got an email from a man who recognized the hoodie from the footage, and the hands on the keyboard. Within 12 hours, Keanu had her name. Sana Malik. Third year, med student, local bakery employee, lives with her mother and brother. No social media, no attention. Keanu read the report and stayed silent for a long time. Then he asked his assistant to book a ride. "Are we doing an interview?" she asked. "No," he replied. "A donation?" "Not yet." "Then what?" Keanu looked up. "I'm going to thank her, in person, that's all." But the visit didn't go as planned, because when he arrived at her apartment building that evening, a group of men were arguing loudly outside the stairwell. The landlord, 2 lawyers, and a building inspector. Sana's mother stood between them, pleading quietly in her due. "We're not late. Please, just 2 more days. The boiler's not working," the landlord snapped. "And I'm selling. You have 30 days." Keanu stood there, watching from a distance. No one recognized him in his baseball cap and hoodie. But he had seen enough. The girl who saved his life was about to lose her home, and no one was doing anything. Yet. The thank you she never expected. Sana didn't even know Keanu Reeves had been standing there. She came home 20 minutes later, her backpack slung low, her shoulders tired, her shoes wet from a sudden rain. She stepped into the apartment building and saw her mother sitting on the stairs, holding a piece of paper with trembling hands. Sana dropped her bag. "Hama, what is it?" Her mother didn't speak. She just handed her the eviction notice. "They're selling the building," she whispered. "We have 30 days. Sana blinked slowly. She sat down beside her mother, back against the cool wall, and took a deep breath. For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at the thin slip of paper that had the power to uproot everything. Her mother reached for her hand. "We'll figure it out," Sana said quietly, but she didn't believe it. She was already behind on tuition. Her scholarship had covered the first 2 years, but year 3 had been harder. And with Omar's medications, their food budget, and rent climbing every few months, there was nothing left. No savings, no backup. She looked up at the ceiling. The same old stains, the same flickering light bulb. But suddenly, she remembered something. Not something from school. Something from the alley. His eyes. The moment when he stopped breathing, when she held his hand and whispered, "You're going to be okay." And now he was. But was she? Just 2 miles away, Keanu sat in a black SUV parked under a tree, hands folded, watching the building. He hadn't approached yet. Not because he didn't want to, but because something in him said, "Don't make this about you." He knew what it felt like to be saved by someone who didn't want attention. He also knew how fragile pride could be when dignity was all you had left. He watched Sana hold her mother. Watched the way she didn't cry. Watched how she straightened up after a few minutes and took the stairs quietly, holding her mother's bag too. He waited until the lights turned off in their apartment. Then he made a call. "I need to buy a building," he said. The next morning, Sana returned to the bakery. She didn't say anything to her co-workers, didn't bring up the eviction, didn't mention the headlines still flashing across every screen. "Search for mystery med student continues," or how people were offering scholarships to someone they hadn't even identified. She just tied her apron, clocked in, and started rolling dough. But something felt different. Customers were whispering more. Someone was staring. Then, right before closing, a man entered. Tall, gray hoodie, hat low. He didn't say a word, just walked up to the counter and waited until she looked up. And then she froze, because she knew that face. He lifted his cap slowly. "Hi," Keanu said gently. "Do you remember me?" Sana didn't move. He stepped forward. "You helped me in that alley. You stayed calm when everything was falling apart. She blinked. How did you? I asked around. He smiled, quietly. I didn't want attention, I know. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Keanu said, I came here to thank you. Not with cameras, not with press. Just, thank you. Sana glanced at the kitchen. Khalid was watching. The room had gone silent. I was just doing what anyone would have done, she whispered. Keanu tilted his head. No, he said softly. Most people walk away. She exhaled. I didn't think it was a big deal. He smiled again. Then let me make it one. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small envelope on the counter. This isn't a reward, he said. This is a promise. Sana didn't open it until her shift ended. Inside was a single piece of paper. A full medical school tuition grant, signed by the Reeves Foundation, which hadn't existed until that morning. And a note. You believed in saving lives. Now let me help you save more. She stared at the words for a long time, then wiped her tears and quietly put the paper into her bag. But the surprises weren't over. When she returned home, her mother was pacing in the hallway. They canceled the sale. She cried. Someone bought the building and said we don't have to move. They said the rent is locked, no increases. Sana's eyes widened. Who bought it? Her mother held up a card. No name. Just 2 words. Stay kind. And Sana knew Keanu had done both things. Without asking for anything. Without making a sound. The story should have ended there. A girl saves a man. The man saves her back. A circle of kindness complete. But it didn't end, because the next morning, someone else came into the bakery. Not to buy bread, not to smile, but to follow her. A man in a leather jacket. No words, just a phone in his hand, taking pictures from behind a shelf. Sana saw him through the reflection of the glass. He didn't look like press. He looked like someone who didn't want to be seen. And suddenly, she had a feeling. This wasn't about a thank you anymore. This was about something else, something deeper, because someone had realized who she was. And someone didn't like that she had gotten close to Keanu Reeves. The man left after 5 minutes. But he came back the next day. And the next, until one morning, Omar went missing. The shadow behind the Smilith morning began like any other. Sana packed Omar's lunch, leftover rice, 2 boiled eggs, and a mango her mother had gotten from the corner store. She checked his inhaler, zipped up his backpack, kissed his forehead, and watched as he walked to the school bus with his usual sleepy shuffle. She waved. He waved back. But 2 hours later, the school called Ms. Malik. The woman on the phone said carefully, Your brother never arrived at school this morning. Sana froze. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the bakery counter. What do you mean? His teacher marked him absent. The bus driver says he never got on. Sana didn't respond. She didn't say thank you. She just hung up the phone, tore off her apron, and ran into the street. The city spun around her. Honking cars, blinking lights, voices calling her name. None of it mattered. She retraced Omar's path, down 3rd Street, past the faded bus stop sign, through the empty lot behind the market. Every step fueled by fear that he was gone. And no one saw it happen, except someone did. The same man in the leather jacket who had been taking pictures days earlier. The same man who had stood in the shadows, silent and patient. Sana remembered his face. Now, the narrow eyes, the clenched jaw, the way he watched but never spoke. She had thought he was paparazzi. Now she knew better. This was a message. But from who and why? Across town. Keanu was in a meeting with his foundation team when his assistant entered the room. Pale and trembling. You need to see this, she whispered. She held up her phone. A blurry photo had been sent to the foundation's public email account. It showed Omar sitting in a chair in what looked like a warehouse, his eyes scared but unharmed. The message attached read, Tell the girl to stay quiet, or the boy won't come home. Keanu stood immediately. Who else has seen this? He asked. Just me, the assistant said. Good. Delete it. Trace it. Lock down every contact we've had with the media. His voice was calm, but something inside him had changed. He picked up his coat, canceled the meeting, and called Brenda Sato, a lawyer he trusted with his life. we're being followed, he said. Someone's targeting the girl, and now it's personal. Sana returned home to find the police officers waiting at the apartment door. Her mother had called them when the school confirmed Omar was missing. The officers asked questions, wrote notes, gave kind looks. But they didn't move fast enough. Sana knew time was slipping. She stepped out onto the fire escape, sat down, stared at the city. Her hands were shaking. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message: you should have stayed quiet. She dropped the phone. Her mind raced. This wasn't about the heart attack anymore. This was about something bigger. Someone had watched what happened in the alley that night, watched Keanu collapse, watched her save him, and had seen it not as a miracle, but as an opportunity. And now they were using Omar as leverage. But for what? To silence her, to blackmail him. Keanu arrived at her apartment 20 minutes later. No driver, no cameras, no security. Just him. She opened the door and broke down. He caught her in his arms. They took him, she whispered. They took my brother. Keanu held her tighter. Then, we get him back. You don't understand, she said. They said to stay quiet. I'm done staying quiet, he said. And for the first time since the alley, Sana saw something new in his eyes. Not pain, not vulnerability. Resolved. A quiet fire. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Not to the police. To someone else. Someone from his past. A man who owed him a favor. Across the city. A former intelligence officer named Elias picked up the call on the second ring. What's wrong? He asked. I need you, Keanu said. How bad? They took a child. Yours? No, hers. You're serious? I've never been more. Elias sighed. Send me what you have. Photos, times, messages. I'll find him. That night, Keanu and Sana sat in silence on the apartment floor. She clutched the wooden coin he had once given her, the one with the word stay etched into it. He watched her. You didn't ask for any of this, he said. Neither did you, she replied. And that's when he told her the truth. About his own past, about the pain, the loss, the letters he kept, the silence he lived with. I know what it feels like to watch the world move on without you, he said, but I'm not letting that happen to you. Not this time. And in that quiet promise, something shifted, not just between them, but around them. Because while they waited, Elias traced the phone number that sent the photo, then traced the device that sent the original message to the foundation. And found something unexpected. A connection to a private security firm. One that had been hired years ago by a Hollywood executive. Someone who had once tried to sue Keanu for walking away from a massive contract. Tied to a charity scandal. Someone who blamed him for the public humiliation that followed. And now, they had returned. But they hadn't expected Sana. They hadn't expected her strength. Her silence. Her kindness. Or her fire. And when they took Omar, they made a mistake. Because now, they were up against a girl who had saved a man's life. And a man who would now risk his life to save hers. The break in the silent site was just after 2 a.m. When Elias called. Keanu answered before the first ring finished. I found him, Elias said. Your girl's brother. He's alive, scared, but okay. Where is he? Warehouse off Glendale. Abandoned textile plant. Used to be a shipping center. Now it's owned by a shell company. Guess whose name is buried in the paperwork? Keanu. Didn't hesitate. Donovan Keene. Bingo. Keanu closed his eyes. Donovan Keene, a Hollywood executive turned private investor, years ago. He and Keanu had partnered on a supposed charity project aimed at building community centers. When Keanu learned it was a front for embezzlement, he walked away, publicly, loudly. The fallout nearly ruined Keene's empire. But instead of taking accountability, Keene went underground and waited. Now he had returned. And he had taken a child to get even. He's not just targeting me, Keanu said. He wants to break her, to prove that kindness can't survive power. He chose the wrong people to mess with, Elias replied. Sana sat on the edge of the couch, twisting the wooden coin between her fingers. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady when she asked, Where is he? Keanu looked at her. We're going tonight. She stood. I'm going with you. Sana, no, she said. He's my brother. And he nodded. Elias met them at an old parking garage an hour before dawn. The sky was still dark, quiet. He spread blueprints on the hood of his car. The building has 2 exits, 3 side windows, and 1 main bay door. Cameras, maybe motion sensors. But this isn't a fortress, it's intimidation. They want to be seen, just enough to scare you. How many inside? Keanu asked. Maybe 3. Maybe more. But we don't need a fight. We need a distraction. Keanu looked at Sana. You okay? She nodded. What do I do? Trust yourself, he said. They arrived just before sunrise. Keanu and Elias approached the front of the warehouse. Calm, casual, like 2 men checking an old property. Inside, a man sat beside Omar, scrolling his phone lazily. The boy was tied to a chair, but unharmed. He had stopped crying hours ago. Now he just waited. Quiet, brave. But then the back window shattered. Smoke rolled through. Alarms began to beep. The guard jumped up. But it was too late. Keanu and Elias were already inside. The moment the door burst open, Sana rushed in. Omar. He turned, eyes wide. Appa. She threw her arms around him, untied the rope, clutched him like she would never let go again. Keanu stood over the man who had been guarding him. Tell Keen we're not scared, he said. Tell him we don't hide, and we don't forget. They didn't call the police right away. First, they drove straight to a clinic, a real one, clean walls, calm nurses. Sana checked Omar's vitals herself. When the doctor asked if she was licensed, she said, not yet, and continued checking oxygen levels anyway. Omar was fine. Hungry, tired, shaken. But fine. Sana sat in the hallway afterward, the wooden coin still clutched in her hand. Keanu sat beside her. You were incredible, he said. I didn't do anything, she replied. He turned toward her. You didn't just save me that night in the alley. You saved your brother, with your calm, your mind, your heart. This world is loud, Sana. It rewards noise. But you remind people what quiet strength looks like. Tears filled her eyes. What happens now? Keanu took a deep breath. Now, we make it bigger. The next day, the story broke. Not because Keanu went public, but because Elias leaked one photo, a single image. Keanu standing in front of the warehouse, holding Omar's hand, with Sana beside him, strong, silent, proud, and the caption was simple. She saved a life, then saved another. The internet exploded. People began calling Sana not just the mystery girl, but the girl who didn't ask for fame. Within hours, 3 medical universities offered her full scholarships. A hospital in New York offered a residency slot. Before she even graduated, but she didn't take any of it. Instead, she stood beside Keanu at a press conference and made one announcement. They were creating a foundation, Project Calm, a program that would train young people in emergency response, regardless of income or education level. Free workshops, mentorships, real practice, and a promise: your voice matters, even if you whisper it. People donated instantly. Celebrities called to offer help, but Sana stayed quiet. She let the work speak louder than her words. And as for Donovan Keene, an anonymous whistleblower released years of documents proving corruption, intimidation, and bribery. He was arrested 10 days later, and no one mourned him. On a quiet afternoon weeks later, Sana and Omar stood outside the alley where it all began. The wall where Keanu had once collapsed now had a mural. It showed a girl in a hoodie kneeling beside a fallen man, and beside them, in soft paint, were the words, "Calm saves lives." Omar reached for her hand. "Appa," he said, "can I be a doctor too?" She smiled. "You already are." Asterisk. The heart keeps beating. Months passed. The headlines faded. The cameras moved on. But for Sana Malik, life had only just begun. She no longer worked at the bakery. She no longer skipped classes. She no longer had to choose between buying a textbook or paying for her brother's inhaler. Instead, she spent her mornings in the lecture halls of the city's best medical university. Fully funded. She spent her afternoons leading workshops at Project Calm, the foundation she built with Keanu Reeves. They met in libraries, shelters, mosques, and school gyms. showing young people how to act fast in emergencies, how to trust their instincts, and how to stay calm when others panic. Sana's story had reached the world. But she never tried to become a celebrity. She still rode the bus. Still made lentil soup every Sunday for her mother, and Omar. Still tied her sneakers tight before walking to class. But the girl who had once disappeared into shadows after saving a man's life, she was no longer invisible. As for Keanu, he stayed involved, not in the spotlight, but in the small moments. He visited schools, he sat in on classes, he paid for training kits and clinic supplies out of his own pocket. When asked why, he simply said, "Because someone once saved me when I couldn't stand on my own." And every time he spoke publicly, he credited her first. Sana taught me that calm doesn't mean silence, it means strength. They remained close, not in the way the media fantasized, but in the way people stay connected after walking through fire together. Like family. Omar thrived. His grades went up, his asthma became manageable. He joined the after-school science club and announced he would be a pediatric surgeon by age 16. When Sana laughed, he added, "Maybe 17 if I take summer off." They visited the mural once a month. It was now protected by the city. Beneath it, children would leave small drawings, flowers, and thank you notes, not just for Keanu, but for the girl in the hoodie. But then, one evening, Sana found herself back at the alley. Not for ceremony. Not for photos. Just walking home. A woman was sitting on the curb nearby. Crying. Clutching her phone. "Ma'am?" Sana asked gently. The woman looked up. "My sister. She just collapsed. I don't know what to do. The ambulance is 10 minutes away." Without thinking, Sana dropped to her knees. She looked at the phone, listened, asked her questions, then instructed calmly, "Put her on her side. Keep her airway open. Talk to her. Don't let her go quiet." The woman followed every word. The call ended, and the woman looked at Sana with wide, desperate eyes. How did you know what to do?" Sana smiled softly. "Calm saves lives," she said. And then she walked away. Later that week, Keanu asked her to speak at a conference. Doctors, med students, health officials, people with more degrees and more money than she ever had. When she stepped on stage, she wore her usual sneakers and a borrowed blazer. As she began her speech like this, "I'm not here because of a scholarship. I'm not here because I'm perfect. I'm here because I didn't walk away when someone needed help. And that's something anyone can do." She paused. Then added, "You don't need permission to care." The room went silent. Then it stood. Years later, Project Calm expanded to 12 countries. Thousands of young people trained, hundreds of lives saved, and in the corner of every training manual, carved into the design, were two words: stay calm. As for Sana and Keanu, they never tried to make the story bigger than it was, because the truth was already enough. He had fallen, she had helped, he had stood again, and then she had flown. And in the quiet of that first alley, where rain once fell and hearts once stopped, a new plaque was placed. It read, "In honor of the moment she chose not to walk away." And because of that, the heart kept beating.